Major funding for these programs is provided by HSH Nordbank and First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Perfect Building Maintenance, Allied Partners, Greenberg Traurig LP, the Moynihan Group. Additional funding is provided by Antares Real Estate, Arbor Realty Trust, C.B. Richard Ellis, City Habitats, City Investment Fund, Cushman & Wakefield, Eastern Consolidated, Essex Capital Partners, Fremont Investment and Loan, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, McSam Hotel Group, MUSS Development, LLC, Newmark Knight Frank, Palin Enterprises, Rosenthal & Rosenthal, Inc., Swig Equities, the Engel Berman Group, Titan Capital, the WITKOFF Group, YL Real Estate Developers, Extreme Contracting and Deconstruction.
Hello, my name is Michael Stoller of the Stoller Report. There's an entire part of the country out of New York City. You know, people want to know what's happening in Greenwich, Putnam, Orange, Connecticut, this part of the area. But unfortunately, I have failed. I have been negligent. But I won't be negligent today, because today I have three individuals who really know what's happening in that marketplace. I'd like to introduce Jessica Rahm, Managing Director at Capelli Enterprises, my good friend Joseph Bennati, co-founder and managing partner of Antares Real Estate, and last but not least, I better not screw it up, Andy Meniglia, Vice President of Development at Ginsberg Development Corporation. Now, you have properties in New Rochelle, White Plains, and other places. Joe, you're the Connecticut Yankee. I don't think you're in New York State, even though you're so close by. And Andy, you have all over, predominantly in Westchester and Putnam in that market.
Westchester, Rockland, Orange, and Connecticut.
Right. Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's happening there? You know, there is this perception about the market. Is it slow, or is it doing well in the for sale development?
We're excited about the market right now. We had a good start to the new year. You know, I think some of the tough weather in the middle of the year, maybe perhaps by the end of March, beginning of April, maybe saw a little bit slowing. But we've done our homework in all the markets that we're in, and we're showing some very good progress right now.
And what kind of product do you have? Right? Because I want each one of you to tell my audience a little bit about it. You know, the different type of products and developments that the Ginsberg Development Corp offers.
Well, generally we do townhouse development. We do mid-rise development, flat condominium, and mostly for sale product.
And what price range are these developments?
Well, again, depending on the location where you are, anywhere from 400 to over $1 million.
Now, what's the profile? I mean, you have a project that you're working with Capelli Enterprises on in Ossining.
Yes,
right.
Very true.
And what's that going to be?
Well, that's going to be 150 units of about a 7-story mid-rise unit, flat condominiums, right on the waterfront on the Hudson River.
And what are the prices going to range over there?
Well, you know, we haven't started pre-sales yet, but I believe that we will start from 400 on up there. They are sizable units. I think actually those will be the very smaller units. But I think we'll see an average of about 700, 750 a unit.
So it's interesting because my viewers, you know, when you spend too much of your time, even though we are going to be up in Greenwich in a couple of weeks, we are going to be being picked up by Greenwich Public Broadcasting, you know, 400 is reasonable for New York City. You have to go north of 96th Street, you have to go to the Bronx. Mm-hmm. Here you can buy a brand new townhouse or a condominium. Now, Joe, you have both spectrums, okay? Let's talk about the regular spectrum, and then let's
Sure.
talk about the other spectrum of the market of what Antares is doing today.
I think on the what we consider our regular spectrum for Greenwich, at least, we had 400 units that we bought and have been converting over the course of the last 12 months and put them up for sale about 4.5 months ago, and were approved by the New York AG's office. And we've sold about 175 of the 400 units.
Now what are these units? Were they 20-year-old units? I mean,
They were 40 years old and they've been completely renovated. So it's brand new construction down to the electrical insulation.
Were they townhouses, attached, detached?
Both. And townhomes and detached homes, duplex and triplex, with all amenities, swimming pools, tennis courts, new Cybex workout facilities. And we think that one of the differentiators in Greenwich has been that $1 million purchase is a $4,500 per year tax bill. So some of the folks we're seeing from Westchester think that that's, you know, a 3-month tax bill as opposed to a 12-month.
Right, because
tax
Westchester's taxes are what?
Well, it depends. For private homes, single-family homes in places like Larchmont and Harrison, it could be 3% of the price of the house. But at the
3% is on a $1 million house, $30,000.
right, very high, and we're getting the same thing at our condominiums. Is that people are just astonished at how low the taxes are.
I mean, but I mean, I don't want to say, but there aren't in New York City. You can't find taxes at $4,500 for something like that. I mean, you know, even Ossining, Yorktown Heights, or anything like that.
Ossining, I think we'll see 1.5 to 2
of the purchase
2% of the purchase
right.
price. Yeah.
Now, so somebody can
Greenwich
buy.
is an anomaly with regards to taxes, though, right from the lowest price to the highest price to states. And it's part of the reason why you see private residences trade at $25 and $35 million there, and you'll see homes of equivalent stature in Scarsdale will kind of get capped at $8 and $10 million. I mean, there's just a permanent cap rate compression that the town taxes put on the value of homes.
Right, but also if you go to Connecticut, we don't have state income tax.
Correct. You have property taxes.
Right, you have property taxes, so it's it's a different category over there. But aren't you also doing something in Danbury?
We're not. The largest project we have is actually in Stanford.
Stanford.
And that has several million square feet. Ultimately, the master plan is for 6.6 million square feet of a mix of residential and commercial and retail and 3 hotels.
And what since the show today really is on residential, what are you planning to build in the residential mix in Stanford?
It'll complement the commercial that we're building. It'll be about 4,000 units with 400 or so workforce housing, so about a 10% affordable component. There'll be about 500 boat slips, a marina, a boardwalk that'll circle the canal there, and 20 restaurants, a couple of supermarkets, a public park, really a mini city on the water.
And what will these units be selling for?
They'll range. We'll have, probably similar to my colleagues here, a range of between $500,000 and $4 or $5 million for penthouse apartments.
And Jessica Capelli, I mean, Capelli was responsible for New Rock and New Rochelle. Really, Capelli in the commercial was responsible for the gentrification, the change of White Plains.
Right.
Let's talk about the Ritz and some of the properties that Capelli's doing now.
Well, we're also in Stanford, actually the first ones to build in Stanford condominiums, and we opened that sales office about 2 weeks ago, and it's just unbelievable, the pent-up demand for a product there. And the Ritz was...
Good news.
Yeah,
Great.
we were just
Really
talking
so
about that
pleased
before.
to hear
And
this.
also, aren't you building a school? I heard you were building a school.
We
there.
are. We will
That's a
have
good thing, too.
First Site School. We just made a very large donation of land to the school, and we'll also have
great.
a museum, so that will...
It's a fabulous town. Actually, I'm on the board of the Stanford Symphony, and it's a very intellectual place. And I'm finding what's interesting is that there's really this barbell market in the condominium market. You asked how things are really, you started the conversation with how are sales going in the suburbs. And I think it's a tale of 2 markets, really. There are not the kinds of homes that Antares builds, but regular single-family homes that people live in that market has slowed a bit, but the condominium market is booming. It's one statistic I heard is, for example, in Stamford, that single-family homes are off by 29%, but condominium sales are up by 29%. And you're seeing kind of a barbell market where you've got the empty nesters and you've got the young professionals. And when I'm trying to figure out the marketing for a condominium, like the Ritz or Trump, one of our Trump buildings, I try to figure out what percentage of which end of the barbell we're going to get in that particular building.
But I think, isn't that perhaps attributed to the fact that certain people who own their single-family home I think it's worth much more than it really is, and people, you know, oh, I'm going to get this price, and they don't realize their expectations. And sometimes, you know, if they move into, you know, the Ritz or the Trump project or something else, and they need to buy or something into one of the Ginsburg developments, then they may become more realistic and put the price down at a lower price.
Well, I think it's a very astute observation, and what I'm finding from a couple of years ago, where I'd say 90% of the buyers were empty nesters, is that's shifted dramatically. For example, at the Ritz, where we sold out Tower 1, 45% are young professionals and 55% are empty nesters. Mm-hmm. And it's because these young professionals are either first-time buyers, they have a lot of cash, they don't have to sell something first, and they're not concerned about depreciation of their primary residence and living on a retirement income.
We're seeing quite a bit of that too, because we do so much in a narrow geography and have commercial and hotel holdings as well. We've never seen our occupancy at the hotels as high as they've been, and we've never seen as little price pressure in leasing our commercial space as we've seen. Just expansion upon expansion of existing tenants and new tenants. Mm-hmm. And you know, just anecdotally, we'll put out a requisition for a junior accountant in our finance department, and the market is just very, very strong. We're seeing, you know, I think 4.5% national unemployment, but I think locally in the tri-state area, it's probably much lower than that, and the job market is very strong. There's a tremendous amount of income on the part of both our corporate tenants as well as the employees. And we're seeing the demand, not just empty nesters, but young professionals.
But you know, now you just bring out, which is a perfect lead into my next question, besides the perceived, you know, the $1 million homes in Greenwich, the 40-year-old places that you're converting, and the Stamford where you're going to have the affordability for the workforce housing, you're also building these mansions. Tell me a little bit about these mansions.
The smallest division in our company, which gets probably the most publicity, but each year we'll build 1 or 2 large $10 to $25 million homes in backcountry Greenwich. And the market, the target market for those homes are definitely our hedge fund clients in our office buildings, our private equity clients that are in our office buildings, those that have made the migration from New York City and that don't mind leasing space from us at $150 a square foot and buying homes from us and eating in our restaurants and staying at our hotels or having their limited partner meetings at our hotels. So not a very big market, but certainly in Greenwich there's
how many of these mansions are you building? I mean, you said you're going to build 1 or 2 a year. What's the total plan?
We've got about probably 5 to 6 years of inventory of land that we have bought in Greenwich that we've approved for these types of estates, and which we'll bring online every year or so.
Well, you know, in Long Island, there's been a problem with what we call the active adult community. A number of the WCI properties are hurting. A couple of Pulte's properties are doing poorly because of this active adult. Now, I know that Westchester, Connecticut has active adults. Has Capelli and has Ginsburg done active adults? And what's your concept about active adult?
Well, we've never really done active adult communities. We don't, nor age restricted. I mean, we simply don't believe in that. We believe that that the market is there and it should be free flowing for everyone to join in.
I think we would probably feel the same way.
Yeah.
What we have one, Trump Park Residences, and it's an absolutely magnificent piece of property, and we're building beautiful.
Where is that?
It's in Yorktown Heights. And the reason that one has that, it's really a zoning issue, is that the town doesn't want more children in the schools.
Right. I mean,
so, you know,
for my audience, basically,
Right.
an active adult community is that you have, it's an age-restrictive community that you have to, one of the members of the family has to be 55 or
Right.
older. And part of the problem is, the real reason that they were created is, as you say, this way the town gets very happy because they don't have to build schools.
Right.
You know, I often say when we go to develop projects in certain municipalities that school districts want everything except children. That's
funny.
That's
Actually,
the trend what we're beginning to see.
The way I look at it is most 55-year-old men have 35-year-old wives, so it's hardly a 55 and older community. And you know, it's doing well. It's got a particular audience, mostly people who have children in that area, and they want to stay local, and they spend half the year in Florida, and they want to, you know, sell the house and move to a
The
condominium.
big negative that I see, and I hate to utilize the same analogy of what happened in Florida, when the person moves in there today when they're 55 or 60, and it's 20 years from now, it's not active adult, it goes to the next level, assisted living. It's the resale situation. It's
Right.
fine as it is, and you know, I think Andy put it perfect. These municipalities want everything, but they don't want the school system, and you know, that's the circumstance. You know, we're talking about a lot of sales, you know, but there are certain residential rentals taking place. I mean, the units, the market force, are they going to be sales or rentals in Stanford? So there'll be both. You know, people, you know, certain people, we were talking at a prior show that they, you know, it's better to rent, okay? Or do you build any rental apartments?
We have in the past. We have none on the boards right now. We're confident in the for sale market, and we're going to stick with that right now.
It's interesting you should say that, because I agree with you. We don't have rentals either, but I think that's one of the problems with doing conversions. And you probably could speak better to this, but the conversions that I've worked on is you've got people living in the building renting, and they want to be renters for whatever their reasons are. And when you tell them you either buy or you get out, it's a very uncomfortable, antagonistic atmosphere, and therefore when you're doing new construction and everybody's buying into something new, you have a completely different energy. So that's just an observation on the subject.
It's interesting because in New Rochelle, Avalon Bay is building their second rental tower, and Avalon Bay doesn't build for sale units, and you know, one rental tower has 450 units. Now they're going to have another 450 units, and you know, there are people. I mean, there are rentals in White Plains, aren't there?
There are some.
I mean, the Robert Martin property was you know, a rental, but you know, unfortunately, and I don't want to say it as a sales broker, you know, when you're selling a unit, you're trying to make the simple situation for the price of paying the rent, you can have some equity, you know. So I don't want
to write-off.
And the write-off, okay? And I think it's important, but I think, you know, the question is, you know, a lot of my audience is in New York City, and my question comes in, I'm hearing a very interesting situation. I mean, if you can afford it, I think you have a great opportunity to go to Joe in Greenwich, you know, where the taxes are so low for $1 million conversion. You can go to White Plains, and you can buy a variety of things. You can go to many of the Ginsburg development. But who is the buyer? Okay, where do they work? Where do they live? That's what you know, and I think, because, you know, what I'm trying to do for my audience is to give them some insight and give them opportunities, and I think they are gaining some insight. But who's buying? Do they live and work in Westchester or Connecticut?
We've developing now about 1 million feet of commercial up on the water in Stanford, and the team at Cushman & Wakefield is representing us for our brokerage requirements with commercial users. They recently did a presentation, Bruce Mosler and head of research and the top brass from Cushman up in Stanford, and showed 20 22 New York City tenants right now looking for 250,000 square feet or more. And there are 6 locations that are acceptable to those 22 users in New York City. And naturally, who we're talking to for the 1 million feet of commercial that we're developing in Stamford are the folks that are playing a game of musical chairs. They're going to sit down, and there's not going to be enough seats for them here in the city. So it's UBS expanding, it's RBS expanding. Now if they buy ABN, they're going to expand even further. And you can count, you know, the JP Morgans, the Bear Stearns, the Lehman Brothers, pick any of the name firms. That's who's moving to Westchester.
I have some
That's a
statistics
corporate.
for you.
Okay,
Right.
that's a corporate. But my question is,
Right.
where? Okay, have you seen the migration of, let's say, the person who's buying your $400,000 home or your $500,000 to $700,000 home migrate from the city and commute back?
Well,
I mean, are they
let me answer that,
are they
'cause
commuting into
Reverse
the city?
commuting?
I've
Reverse
just-
commuting.
just done the statistics on that, so I can tell you 19.53% of our buyers are coming from Manhattan. Some of them are commuting back to Manhattan, but there are 80,000 people a day who commute from Manhattan to, you know, up 95. Okay, so some of them get off in White Plains, some of them go on to Stamford. It's an enormous market for us. I mean, we're just all sitting there waiting to figure out how to tap that market. We're figuring it out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I say we have about 20% from New York City. But to follow up on what Joe had said, he had said that you know, when the corporations actually move up there, so too the people follow. I sat on the Westchester County IDA board for 8 years, and I saw a trend of New York City companies coming up to move closer.
But Andy, I don't want to say, but it's 22 years that they haven't built a new office building in White Plains and in most of Westchester. Some people, as Steve Roth said from Vornado, at one time people went to the suburbs. Now they want to come back, a lot of these companies. I agree with what Joe is saying, because there's a lack of space in New York City that many of these companies will go back. But Westchester, you could be
well,
paying rents.
Lewis is building
Lewis is
3
planning
big towers and
in
redoing the
White- yeah.
entire White Plains train stations.
Yeah.
He's got 450-foot towers, and he's hoping that there'll be single-tenant towers.
23 years since
Right.
the last tower has been built. Lowell, Schumann, and the rest of that. I don't have to say, there was everybody wanted to be in Westchester, and there were these
Right.
magnificent spaces. And Joe, you've been on my show, and we said this. You know, nothing happened. Now there is this. People are running to Stamford. I mean, with what you're doing, what other developments in Stamford. You know, I mean, there's not enough space in Greenwich. You can't build anything like that. But people want to be there. I mean, we had looked at something where Bayer is in Connecticut.
Greenwich is, you know, putting aside Greenwich, we just are redeveloping a 160,000-foot office building, former corporate headquarters, and have not put the space on the market, and have a June 24th event with commercial brokers that we're actually going to have to cancel because we've leased all the space. So that's an animal all itself, Greenwich. But what we found in Stamford is that there's a different demand than there is in Westchester. I don't know if it's a Westchester being perceived as more of a back office location, Stamford being perceived as more of a northerly option for Midtown, the way downtown is a southerly option for Midtown. And getting that, you know, speaking to Michael Fuchs and the team over at RFR, hearing that from some of our tenants. We have bought, owned, and done very well with office buildings in Westchester and continue to be interested in Westchester, but there is a difference between Fairfield and Westchester County. A little bit more front office in Fairfield County, a little bit more of a back office in Westchester.
I'm listening over here. How important, I mean, White Plains, the great thing about White Plains is the train. Great thing about Greenwich and Stamford is the train. Okay, what about places where the train, I mean, Ossining, you have a train also, but
you also have a ferry in Ossining that takes people to and from Haverstraw. In Yonkers, you have a ferry that's going directly down to Lower Manhattan to the World Financial Center now. I'm not certain I agree with Joe's assessment
I don't agree either.
of Westchester being more back office than front office. I believe Westchester's on the cutting edge, and I think it's going to remain there and grow, quite frankly, a little bit more. And I'd like to see a little more ferry service coming out of Stanford, too.
You know, the largest city in Westchester is a city called Yonkers.
That's correct, Doug.
And Yonkers has been...
Be careful, I was deputy mayor there for 4 years, from 92 to 95. Go ahead.
Nothing's happened in Yonkers for many years.
Oh,
it's going to change soon.
Now!
I'm not,
Andy?
Yes, sir.
It's changing, right?
Yes. We've had some good waterfront development there. Collins has their project up there. Capelli's doing a nice project there. We just converted a 52-unit apartment building to condominium, Riverwatch. It's on our website. We have plans for River Club. Also on Warburton Avenue, north of Odell Avenue. We have a lot of
So you're saying Yonkers is the closest to the city? I mean,
35-minute ride.
35-minute ride, and you know it's an interesting place, and you know there was a perceived crime which has changed over there in Yonkers, and you know it's a nice, as you said, look at the water. I mean, you know, you got Ratner, Forest City is supposed to be building over there also.
They're not on the water, but we have America's Heritage River, the first river, the Hudson River, and I think that's the most important element on the for Westchester County.
So, my question is, even though there's this perception on the single-family homes of a slowdown and the difficulty, there is no perception based on how many units is Capelli building?
Oh, well. Well, we're building, let's see, we've sold already the first tower of 181 units. We're building the second tower now, starting to sell that 183 units. We've got Trump Park, Stamford, which is 171 units. We've got the Ritz, Stamford, which is coming on soon, and that'll be 163 units. A lot. We're building a lot.
And Ginsburg?
Well, in Westchester, Westchester, what we're doing, in particular, you mentioned Yonkers, we have 335 units we're going to begin building in Yonkers. How many units are you going to be building in Yonkers?
So far, it's not confirmed.
Question for my audience, because I think I'm happy that I got to the Yonkers subject. Yeah. What is Yonkers? What is a unit going to sell for in Yonkers?
I think primarily the same thing that it would sell for in Ossining. I don't believe.
So if someone's going to be able to go to Yonkers, which is only 35 minutes from Manhattan, or also like 15 minutes from White Plains.
Yonkers, yes.
Okay, well, in a distance, and they're going to be able to pick up something for 400 to 500,000.
Well,
500,000, and otherwise they'd have to go to Ossining. And how far is Ossining from Manhattan?
Ossining's about a 45-minute train ride.
Okay, so as my camera people have told me, I'm close to saying goodbye, so I have to say goodbye, and I'm really happy that I've been able to gain a lot of perspective for my audience, and now that we're going to be up in Greenwich, and hopefully maybe with Andy and other people, we'll get Yonkers and White Plains to pick us up. We've gained a lot of ideas. I'd like to thank Jessica Rum of Capelli Enterprises, Joe Beninati of Venteris, and Andy Magniclia, of Ginsburg Development. In the next week, we're going to be talking about pension plan advisors' perspective on the market. Thank you.
Major funding for these programs is provided by HSH Nordbank and First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Perfect Building Maintenance, Allied Partners, Greenberg Traurig LP, the Moynihan Group. Additional funding is provided by Antares Real Estate, Arbor Realty Trust, C.B. Richard Ellis, City Habitats, City Investment Fund, Cushman & Wakefield, Eastern Consolidated, Essex Capital Partners, Fremont Investment and Loan, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, McSam Hotel Group, MUSS Development, LLC, Newmark Knight Frank, Palin Enterprises, Rosenthal & Rosenthal, Inc., Swig Equities, the Engel Berman Group, Titan Capital, the WITKOFF Group, YL Real Estate Developers, Extreme Contracting and Deconstruction.